So for liability reasons, let's just say that this is my opinion, the facts may not be correct, and if I'm wrong, you should research it yourself, receive legal counsel, and talk to anybody that you feel is necessary to get it right. Because let's just say I don't know, and so it's all an opinion. About 3 years ago, I got a call from a doctor who told me he was at the Washington State Supreme Court on the same day that I was. And then he realized that all of his records weren't in the court records. So he went looking to see who else had come through Division III Court of Appeals in Spokane, Washington, that also didn't have the records, and he discovered I didn't have my records in the file. Later, we went into the clerk's office and we recorded them telling us that they had our records blacked out on one screen, but they actually had them on the other. We had that document transcribed. So they had our records, but they chose not to use them on my appeal. Those records were the Washington State Bar saying that it wasn't the guardian ad litem that was responsible for the ex parte communication, it was the judge. That came from the first whistleblower that came forward that was asked to create documents that she didn't agree with. She was the paralegal at Witherspoon Kelly. Her name's Corey Amsted. So when Corey came forward, we were in Superior Court and we challenged the judge for what she did because she was pretty much caught for falsifying records. Now this case is that two white people and their attorney Spencer Harrington filed court papers as if they were the parents of my black child. And 6 months later, they did a status conference and decided they weren't the parents, but they wanted to be the parents. And 2.5 years or so later, they decided that we were totally fit parents and we should have our kid back. And then they held another trial and decided to give our kid away. And there's pornography filings in the court case that we were told, well, he didn't really see anything, so it wasn't a big deal. So moving forward from having a child stolen, and we were allowed to sue the other party, but nobody would sign the summary judgment between 3 judges after the defendants failed to produce any sort of response to what they did. Today we still have no response, and we were lied to about our statute of limitations to file lawsuits. So and they removed the attorneys that were involved in the corruption because, you know, I guess that's just okay. Nobody's responsible for anything. Okay, so let's move forward. This gentleman shows up and says, your records are missing. We need to talk. Well, in talking to him, and he was a landlord, and the fact that we had done real estate, he actually needed a housekeeper and I had one available. So I sent the housekeeper to go clean his building downtown so that she could make money and he could deal with the inspection by code enforcement and the fire department marshal Nathan Mulkney and I'll think of his name. Ruffy, Jason Ruffy, and he was with code enforcement. So the housekeeper was from Idaho like we are, and she wanted to not go downtown Spokane, so she didn't go. So I said, I'll just come down and help you because it was on a momentary kind of notice thing. I got down there with cleaning supplies, even though he said I couldn't do it, and he said, I got cleaners, don't worry about it. And I said, okay, well, so Jason Ruffing and Nathan Mulkney came through the building, and unbeknownst to everybody, I ended up recording them telling me there was nothing wrong with the building, they were actually telling the owner of the building there's nothing wrong. His name's Dr. Alat Elker-Wiley. So, if there's nothing wrong with the building, he asked him to write off on the inspection, and they said, well, we'll see about that, or something like that. So what ended up happening was that they came back 2 days prior, they being fire chief assistant, fire marshal assistant Nathan Mulkey, and he was found on the ladder of the building doing something to the fire doors. The person that was with him was also doing something. There's videotape. Dr. Elker-Wiley walked outside and caught them on the fire escape where Nathan Mulkney, Spokane Assistant Fire Marshal, basically told him there's nothing wrong, you've done everything you need to do. And so it was kind of like an impromptu deposition. Then a strange thing happened. The city put out a notice that they were seizing a building based on its conditions. And they gave a litany of things that they decided all of a sudden were wrong, even though they're caught twice on camera saying there's nothing wrong. And you don't get to do that when you're the fire marshal. You have to practice with honesty, integrity. You have to tell the people what you're doing and what you're looking for. So I was pretty caught off guard by the fact that they were taking the action of shutting down a building when Nathan Mulkney had been caught on the fire escape a couple days before doing something to the doors. Now, in saying that, and that's just my opinion of what he was doing, but in saying that, we managed to get the monitoring system on the fire monitors for the building, and that was a huge hassle because it seemed like they didn't want to participate. I have video saying that the fire system company had wires turned around up there that they were unturning up in the ceiling. So, you know, a person would have to have a ladder to get up there because they were really high ceilings. And somehow the wire in the firebox was cut, separated from the alarm system. And it was about that time that Mr. Mulkney was in the building and was identified by the fire company that he was in the building. And the box that would have the wire cut in it, 3 people that I know of would have a key. That would be the owner, the fire company, and the fire marshals. So it's kind of strange that only 3 people had access and only one of them was in the building, and then they found the wire cut. I'm sure the city would never do that. So then they put out this do not occupy order, and they said that the building was a building of potential mass carnage, I believe. And they ran the tenants out of the building without proper notice. So now you have a whole pile of low-income people moving out into the streets of a building that they have twice said on film there's nothing wrong with the building, but they're throwing them out into the streets. So Dr. Elker called in, maybe I won't get this right, but he called in a structural architectural engineer with many years practice, a fire company that signed off there's nothing wrong with the fire alarms, an elevator company that said there's nothing wrong with the elevator, boiler company. All of these people are independent. Now all of this got filed into federal court trying to stop the city from doing what they're doing. Okay. So it got filed into federal court. I served all the papers. I've been around a lot for 3 years. And Dr. Elker managed to get First Interstate's loan off of the property by trading the other properties as equity so that there wasn't a bank involved. Now, in doing that, it's my understanding that the bank agreed to get the receiver removed and to do nothing else at First Interstate that was counterproductive to Mr. Elker, Dr. Elker. So, Judge two names hyphenated. I'll come up with it. Anyhow, ordered that money go into a specific bank account and be tracked. Somehow the money from all of the properties that Dr. Elker swapped out to get the building free and clear on the other side where they were trying to seize the building, it seems that all of the rent from those buildings actually were routed through another account, which Dr. Elker claims that he can't get an accounting for $137,000 or so, or any accounting. Okay, so if the bank doesn't have a loan on the apartment building and he owns the building free and clear, or what appears to be free and clear, then there is no receiver needed, because the receiver is protecting the bank and the bank's assets. So First Interstate filed documents. Well, first off, it appears that First Interstate wouldn't give him a copy of the loan documents that he signed for quite a period of time. I could be wrong, but we're going to put all this stuff in here just in case I'm right. And it's just my opinion. And so he had no documents, and Dr. Elker position is that the city wanted him to sign off on the city's liability for what the city did to steal a building that had no infractions. And he was going back and forth with the bank that he would possibly leave the bank out of the lawsuit, whatever, but no, he wasn't going to write off his rights. So First Interstate Bank and the receiver, Barry Davidson, I think, filed paperwork with the courts to get removed because they didn't have an interest in the property. And then they received an email. It was Judge Hy Edwards, that said the money was going to get routed through another account, I believe. And then Davidson and First Interstate, or some combination thereof, received an email from what appears to be Judge Please, who was not on the case at the time, to not pull their names off as receivers. Now, why would Judge Please care if there's a receiver or not a receiver if the bank doesn't have a debt? Maybe because the city wants a building, maybe because everybody's working on behalf of the city, maybe because they're trying to stop him from suing everybody, maybe because the tenants have been thrown out into the street and their rights have been violated, maybe because Judge Please is evil, I don't know. So, as you can see, when this video is posted, nobody's gonna like it. So, Judge Please takes over the case. Now, I would have to go look and see if she was actually assigned to the case, because, see, in Spokane County courts, when a judge gets enough heat or somebody else wants to take a case, they just pull it away from one judge and thump it on the other one's desk, and there's no assignment of judges like there's supposed to be. The cases get rigged that way. So, like, Judge Tony Hazel was ruling on his campaign manager's cases. So, like, appeals court Commissioner Landris, Haley Landris, was caught ruling on the case that she was still the lead counsel in, and she had to step off the case, and then she was assigned to my case after that because I'm paying attention to some of what they're doing, and when they got caught, my name was the process server who served her for doing just that, even though I was just the process server. So you have judges at the courthouse that are just doing what they're doing. They're helicoptering into cases that they're not even authorized to be on. There's no appointment, and you can complain all you want, but they're just dirty. So, it's as simple as that. It's called court corruption. So anyhow, Please assigned herself to the case after an email went out, and from what I understand, the email says that the receiver wasn't to step off the case, even though he didn't have an interest in the property, and he filed that with the court. So over time, what's happened is I went to a municipal court hearing that they forced Dr. Elker-Wiley to go to, even though he had ADA accommodations all the way to the Washington State Supreme Court, and he had seizures in the courthouse. And the ambulances have had to be called like 5 or more times, and they can't even write down his birthday. They can't write down anything. And at one point, a doctor asked me to keep track of all the stress he was under, because when you have that many seizures, you can die from them. And they knew that, but they kept dragging him in. As a matter of fact, he was having a seizure in municipal court, and if he didn't show up to municipal court, they were going to hit him with all the infractions they wrote, and if he did show up in municipal court, they were going to dismiss all the infractions. So he showed up, And he was having a seizure, and I told him they might want to call the paramedics while they go through this court hearing because he's probably going to need one. And so anyhow, he was unable to speak in the hearing because he was having a seizure and he couldn't put the stuff together. And the prosecuting attorney on the other side said that if he got up and went to the bathroom and threw up, that they would write him as guilty of all the infractions. So he sat there. He couldn't talk to the judge. There were multiple witnesses that we had show up, and they wrote off all of the infractions on the building. So now there's nothing wrong with the building. Nothing. Zero. No infractions whatsoever. Okay, so do you give the building back? What do you do? Do you need a receiver? Because there's no infractions and there's no conditions to meet. So why are you not giving him his building back? But they didn't. So they continued to drag him into court, and they continued to keep the receiver on, and this thing has gone up into federal court and back down and up and down and up like 6 or 7 times. So let's talk about federal court. Let's talk about Judge Rice. According to recordings that exist, and according to my standing there at the time that the court clerk announced that she wasn't going to stick Dr. Elker Wiley's evidence into the file, that Judge Rice and the judicial assistant tell her what's going to go into this file, and that's who she listens to. He wasn't allowed to place his evidence into the file. So what is that? That's file tampering or collusion, or what is that? Is it racketeering? You're talking a property with no debt. So in the process of doing all this, Judge Please, apparently, from what I was told attorney Goforth to sell the property within 5 days. So they would have had to post a notice that the property was being sold so that people could come and bid on it, but that didn't happen. So in 5 days, they sold a building that had a $1.3 million balance left owing on it. And they took something like 10 properties that were free and clear to secure that debt. And they, theoretically, they've sold it. Now, there's lots of pictures of all the companies that are coming and working on it, because I've seen the pictures. I just can't figure out if there's no infractions and there's no reason to have the building, why people would be in there fixing the building. I wouldn't come to your house and fix your house without your authorization when you're the person that owns it. So why is it that Dr. Elker Wiley doesn't own his property? So now you have all the rental money coming off of all of these properties that is not going through the bank accounts that High Edwards ordered, and nobody will give Dr. Elker Wiley a list of what all the charges are for. They did, however, send me an email that had all of the people on his side of his case an email, and attempted to extort me to change my testimony. And I even have proof from Judge Kencato that Matt Daly said I didn't have a debt, and then I have Shelley Ripley sending me a bill telling me to pay it by the end of the week or something. And I didn't pay it because I don't owe it, and I filed a complaint with the city about the extortion because I don't really care. So in the meanwhile, they've not only taken his buildings, but they have houses out there that they've taken or are attempting to take and forcing him into a bankruptcy situation. And he continues to file. So now they're trying to say that he's a vexatious litigator because he wants to own what he worked for. I was in court when Dr. Elker asked Judge Please why they ever took his building, and her answer was, I won't give you an exact quote, but I think it was, that ship has sailed. I think he has a right to know why they took his building. So recently, they sold his building for about the cost of all of the receiver's fees and attorney fees, and for like, I'll say 500,000 when there was still $1.3 million owing on it. So he's liable for the $1.3 million because he took a loan out and he secured the properties with it. So therefore, it's an investment type of loan, and so everything's leveraged by everything. He told me, he said, you know, when I think about the fact I lost a building, I can only imagine what it was like when you lost a kid. I was a fit parent. We were ruled as totally fit. And they won't even sign the documents to, you know, I asked them to finally move my case out of county. They sent me something from the Washington State Supreme Court, and I sent an email back that said, this is the only case I ever knew that Chief Judge Gonzalez is actually allowing judges to rule on cases that I'm suing them in. I'm suing the judges and they're ruling on their own case, like Landris was, like Hazel's doing as candidate. So this isn't something new. They all know what they're doing. So they finally took the last appeal out of county to King County, and they never asked the question. Ken Cotto, who's supposed to be a good appeals attorney that I think just rolls over on his clients, like Eric Coltrane, Cindy, whatever her last name is, Cindy, I don't know, whatever, and Linda Harris, and I don't know, I sent 6 or 8 clients over there. He couldn't win anything for anybody. It's amazing. And you don't get to see what he's putting in before he sends it, because he doesn't need your opinion, your knowledge, your advice. Because, you know, after all, he's been a judge, but he's not smart enough to ask why they ever took the kid. Or at least I never saw it in the paperwork, and it was the last thing he promised to do. So anyhow, back to Elker Wiley. So there's been another suit filed against him, and you know, I don't really know what I want to say about it. I do want to say that I ended up seeing pictures of a woman in her, is it called a bustier, like where you're wearing and your boobs are hanging out the front, and your a corset, and probably 40 or 50 pictures of that. and emails that were filed with the court that she asked to have all the videos removed from her what she sent. I know that there was reference to 77 unopened emails by her. I know that there was references to all sorts of different things, and then supposedly she's the victim. Well, you don't send that much stuff out to people and then claim to be a victim. At least I don't. I don't know. You know, my shirt's on, my pants are on. I guess Jeffrey Feiner somehow ended up being her counsel, and there's some sort of an audio tape that's floating around that says something to the effect of, we're after the house, I'm friends with all the judges. And I think that's kind of an interesting thing. I think that first off, Rice, who's been named in a lawsuit, Judge Rice in federal court, who's been named in a lawsuit, has dismissed the case when it's the case he's like part of. And Please is overseeing cases, and now they've thrown him in jail to give them another $137,000, and he's not bondable, which he's asked them what they did with the other $137,000 that didn't run through the right bank accounts. So is that money laundering? What is that? You know, they're trying to dirty him. And I've had people tell me, last week, Judge Walker referenced him as my friend. I had a sheriff reference him as my friend. I guess I suppose I could be. Somebody stuck it on a declaration that I signed. And I said, don't put that in there again, whatever. It wasn't Dr. Elker Wiley who assisted me with that. It was an attorney. Actually, I do care, but him and I are from different worlds. He's Muslim, I'm Christian. He has a very strong opinion about the courts, the court system, and what justice looks like. I don't. I don't believe there's justice in the system, and I don't believe there's justice in Spokane County courts. I have known him for 3 years, and I'm not willing to change what I am aware of, what I saw, what is the truth, what is my truth. And for that reason, I've stuck around. And I'm not seeing anything I don't consider to be fair or kind or right or justice or whatever it is. So you can attempt to extort me, you can take all my properties, you can take my dogs, you can take my husband, you can take my whatever, but I'm not going to be extorted. I'm not going to change my story. You need to tell the public why you took his building, what the ultimate plan was, why you didn't want those bank loan papers signed without removing you for your liability. You need to justify having locked him in jail for $137,000 that you can't even account for, refuse to give any accounting for, Judge, please. You guys need to account for getting rid of all of the infraction violations that were non-existent, and then continuing to hold his building. I'm not going away. I realize I may get locked up, I may get criminalized, I may get this, I may get that, but here's the facts. I'm not going to live forever. I'm over 60. Whether you're stealing a building or you're stealing a kid, you're still stealing. And the Bible says you don't steal. And I don't know what else I can do to rectify what you're doing, but if you're in this community and you're part of what I'm telling you, if you want to sit down and go through documents and facts and pictures and audio tapes, and look, we have the fire department on a lift, 4-story lift, doing things to his property. How would you like if somebody came and did something to your property? I mean, I'm only trying to be fair and reasonable. So this is what I'm saying. I'm going to stick by it. I think that the people at the courthouse are really corrupt. I think that Van Winkle came in and signed a document, did a court order recently that said that it had all sorts of stuff in there that the city didn't this and the city didn't that and this and that and this and that. And I mean, I can pull the document, and he signed off on it. It's an order. And the next thing I know, they are trying to criminalize him in Van Winkle's court. They won't move his stuff out of county. I have never seen a judge railroad a person when they couldn't get the charges that they initiated, and so much evidence came out about it's not true. It was incredible. Like, you know, if you tell me you're a rape victim and for 4 or 5 years you're sending out pictures of your body and I love you and I want to see you and thank you for everything you've done for me and whatever, I don't really know what to do with what I sat in court with Jeffrey Feiner and Judge Van Winkle. If you guys need me to come turn myself in so you can criminalize me too, you can do that. But this video is going up on YouTube and it's not coming down. Thank you.